We usually like coming here because it's like it reminds us of my sister Rebecca, because we like to think of her as a butterfly because they're beautiful and they're free. We miss her so much. Like, there's not a day that doesn't go by where we don't think about her.
Rebecca Contois' family and friends gathered Thursday to remember a young life lost too soon.
We ended up over at the vigil for Rebecca Contois. And I remember kind of that feeling, that sick feeling I had in my stomach as we were standing there.
I think it's sad that time and time again that we have to keep coming here to gather for sad circumstances.
Pamela is trying to process. Her daughter is never coming home.
Kind of lost and hurt. I'm never going to see her again.
I had a lot of things in my head. Like how she died. It's the last word she said. I wanted to know everything.
I remember being angry but also shocked, and I said, well, where's my mom's body? And that's when they said they don't have a body.
The message you are sending that if somebody wants to target and hurt our women, that they can dump them in the landfill and no one will look for them.
That's my girl that's out there. Just because she's First Nation, you go dig for her. You don't leave them out there.
Welcome to Crime Beat. I'm Anthony Robards. Tonight, a case that shook the country. A serial killer in Winnipeg targeting and preying on Indigenous women. Crimes that have left families carrying a lifetime of grief and have cast a national spotlight on the ongoing crisis of murdered and missing Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirit individuals. At the heart of this case is a fundamental question. What does justice look like? Here now is Marnie Blunt and Bringing Them Home.
It's a quiet, unassuming residential neighborhood tucked along the east shores of the murky and muddy Red River on the northern edge of Winnipeg. But down on Edison Avenue in the city's North Kildonan community was the scene of something sinister.
911, what's the location of the emergency?
On May 16th, 2022, 911 operators received a frantic call.
I was walking down the back lane at 253 Edison, the apartment building. In the garbage bins, I found a woman's head in two green bags. The bin is in the back of the apartment building. I didn't touch the head at all physically, but the bag. Real? Yes, it is.
It's human?
It's a human female.
Police quickly rushed to the scene of a deeply disturbing discovery.
From the beginning, it was quite obvious that it was a grisly scene. There was, forensic identification police working in the back alley behind the apartment and evidence markers on garbage bins throughout the alley, which is an indication that police think there was evidence inside of those garbage bins.
A man looking for scrap found her head in a garbage bin, and that was just a horrifying event.
It wasn't long before the victim was identified.
In May of 2022, Rebecca Contois' head was found by an individual who was looking in a garbage bin in a back lane in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Her limbs were found in nearby garbage bins, and she was identified through police investigation, and the police started to try to figure out what had happened to Miss Contois.
Rebecca Contois, a 24-year-old woman and a member of Crane River First Nation.
Do you recall the last time that you had contact with Rebecca?
The last time she physically contacted us was the month of May. That was on my little sister's birthday, Maxine. She said she would be back later on for the party, and then she never came back.
A few days went by, and concern was growing.
Just 2 days after we had my sister's birthday, we were wondering where she was and stuff. Like, did anybody hear from her? Did she stop by? We're like, no. We didn't hear from her. then it was kind of weird because I had a weird feeling that something happened. Because she always comes to our house. I think it was May 16th. Me and my family were just at home because we have like a big house that we all we shared together at the time. It was 2 detectives that came to the house. That's when they told me that they found her deceased by a bin, a garbage bin. And then at that point, I just went running upstairs. I was in shock. I didn't believe the fact that she was by a bin, you know? Like, it can mean anything. It can mean, like, what if she overdosed by a bin? Like, did she do drugs? Or somebody beat her up or something? Like, they didn't tell me, like, all the details on that day.
Her name is being chanted loud and clear, making sure she's not forgotten. Rebecca Contois' family and friends gathered Thursday to remember a young life lost too soon.
We did have that vigil for her in the yard. Then me and my family we were relieved about they found her, because there were still some of her missing, and that was like pretty awful. They said that it was a homicide too. I still didn't know all the details. I was looking online there, and that's when I found out about the separation of my sister.
The details surrounding her death are traumatic and gruesome. Earlier this week, the victim was found dismembered, with parts of her remains tossed into a dumpster on Edison Avenue.
It is a horrifically grisly scene.
Winnipeg police are still searching for the rest of her remains.
Went through everybody's garbages all the way down McKay. Pretty much just removing bags and putting them onto tarps.
This is a tragedy for the entire community and for the city.
Once police had discovered Contois' personal remains, they determined pretty quickly that they would have to search Brady landfill. Almost immediately after the discovery, essentially cordoned off a general search area and had garbage trucks stop dumping there.
It's been an exhaustive and extensive search for Winnipeg police, but after searching the Brady Road landfill for 2 weeks, officers say human remains have been found.
Pending an autopsy of the remains, that will be the source of evidence and the only way to confirm the identity of the victim.
So we just had to wait on the confirmation about her.
A week later, in June 2022, police confirmed the remains found at the Brady Road landfill belonged to Rebecca.
Again, you know, we broke down and we just cried together. We were relieved that they found her, you know.
Family and friends tell Global News Rebecca Contois was a bright and beautiful woman.
And it's my mom again here, Maureen and Rebecca. So we had, there would have been 7 of us, but now there's 6. Rebecca was very adventurous. She was down to earth. She always had her hair like really long. It was like long and dark. She was very outgoing, always wanting to dance with some of my family members. I have a sister who has a disability, and I would see them playing that game, Just Dance, in the room, just laughing and having a good time. That is my dad, who passed away in 2016, and that is my little sister Rebecca, right there beside him. Like, they were super close. I kind of think like it was my the loss of my dad back in that was January of 2016. That's when I started seeing like a change in Rebecca. Like, at that time, she was kind of hanging around with, like, I don't know, I guess they were not the right kind of people to be hanging out with. But at that point, we didn't really judge her on it, on her lifestyle. She was working on getting some of her stuff together at the time. Like, she was telling me she wanted to go back to school. She wanted to, like, do something with her life. She just loved to travel the city and go for bus rides. And I guess she met the wrong person.
Welcome back. The dismembered remains of a woman have been discovered in a garbage bin in Winnipeg, Manitoba. She has been identified as Rebecca Contois. Investigators are now working to determine who is responsible for this horrendous crime and whether there may be more victims. We now return to Marnie Blunt and bringing them home.
In the spring of 2022, other families in Winnipeg were also looking for their missing loved ones, including the family of Morgan Harris, a 39-year-old mother from Long Plain First Nation, last seen on May 1st, 2022, near Main Street and Henry Avenue, an area in the core of Winnipeg.
So yeah, I remember just getting a call one night from my Aunt Crystal, and she was kind of just freaking out, telling me that my mom was missing. And sure enough, I open up Facebook and I see my mom's plastered all over Facebook.
I remember it like yesterday. I was sitting there in my living room, going through my phone, and boom, you know, her picture showed up on my phone and stating that she was missing. And it wasn't until I think the following night we ended up over at the vigil for Rebecca Contois. And I remember kind of that feeling, that sick feeling I had in my stomach as we were standing there and knowing that my cousin was missing.
It was scary. It was really, really scary because we kind of always knew we were going to be hit with that reality, or we always had that gut feeling in the back of our head that something bad was going to happen to her, and we just didn't necessarily know what.
Morgan was unsheltered and living on the streets. Her family says she struggled with mental health and addiction, stemming from her experiences with the child welfare system.
I remember that scary feeling because of the work that I was doing in the community. I knew how extremely vulnerable she was.
So that was a really tough time for me, I guess, because sitting at home with my pretty much baby girl, watching her do all the first things that my mom should be doing, and doing those things that I kind of always wished that I had from my mom, right? And I was breaking that cycle, but that cycle wasn't necessarily broken for my mom, and my mom was still out there struggling.
It was around the same time another young Indigenous woman from Long Plain, 26-year-old Marcedes Myran, a mother of two, also went missing in Winnipeg. Her family last had contact with her in March 2022.
I just thought maybe she traveled. She said she was going to go far, she's going to be famous. It's okay, it'll be awesome. But when I didn't hear from her for months, Mom kept saying, you know, do a missing persons. I couldn't do it. I was in denial.
I phoned the police and reported her missing. Gave them description, gave a picture of her. And we looking for her. People used to ask on the street. They used to remember. They say, yeah, I know her. She's a nice girl. She's really happy, always happy and willing to help. You know, that's how she was. She was very friendly and very happy. Sometimes I think too trustworthy.
Months rolled into months. Summer of 2022 came and went, and still no sign of Marcedes or Morgan.
We spent all those months, every tip that came into our cell phone, my husband and I jumped on. There was many nights where, you know, we'd get calls, oh, we just spotted her, she was in the North End on such corner. And we'd go there and, you know, there'd be a female there that looked strikingly alike to her. You know, same frame, tiny, you know, but it wasn't her.
Anytime a tip came in, there were people out there searching. We were phoning police 24/7, Crime Stoppers, dropping off those tips too, looking for my mom. And she was always on the go, go, go. She was quick, but you could always locate her. And that's when we found out the shelter hadn't seen her in 2 months.
Casting a shadow of darkness over their searches was something they'd learned back in May of 2022. 2 days after Rebecca Contois' partial remains had been discovered in the dumpster off Edison Avenue, the Winnipeg Police Service had made an alarming announcement.
Police have a man in custody, 35-year-old Jeremy Skibicki, who was arrested just blocks away from the dumpster Contois was found in.
We didn't even know of that person that she met that did that to her.
She never mentioned him before.
Not even a name, we didn't even know.
Rebecca Contois had filled out paperwork with employment insurance to have Mr. Skibicki's address noted as her new address, and there was some information that was obtained through that led the police to arresting Jeremy Skibicki. This led very quickly to identifying Jeremy Skibicki as somebody who knew Rebecca Contois.
Like, they probably didn't know each other for a long time, but she was trying to like set up a place with him and all that. Like, share, like, be on the lease and stuff. Because that's just the kind of person she was. She was really trusting in people because she didn't see the bad or like the badness of people.
Rebecca's remains were found behind an apartment on Edison Avenue, about a block away from Skibicki's apartment on McKay Avenue. On May 17, 2022, police brought Jeremy Skibicki in for questioning.
Perfect. Okay, Jeremy, so like I mentioned to you, we're in room A9. This room is video and audio recorded. We went over your rights and the reason for your arrest when we were in the parking.
He was interviewed for the murder of Miss Contois. They entered into that interview with Mr. Skibicki. It was a very lengthy and difficult statement.
The 22-hour-long interview went into the following day.
So did you kill Rebecca Contois?
My lawyer...
No, I'm just asking, did you kill her? Yes or no?
I mean, if you want a direct answer, all I can say is my lawyer instructed me to not say anything.
And do you know this person's name?
I do.
Okay, and what is this person's name?
Her name is Rebecca Contois.
Okay. We move forward with the investigation, and we obviously make this gruesome discovery. That is Rebecca's head in a dollar store bag.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't look at that.
What's the issue?
Oh, it's just disturbing.
Time went by. The season started to change. And in fall of 2022 came a call from the Winnipeg Police Service to the Harris and Myran families.
I got a call back from the same detective again from missing persons, now asking me if I could bring in one of her kids to produce a DNA sample.
The police phoned me one day, wanted to get a hold of Pam, so I told them how to get a hold of her. And they had to get her DNA.
You know, why would they be asking for that? They must know something. You know, and I remember like pushing, I was constantly pushing him, like, if you know something, please just tell me. You know, like, don't leave us in the dark. And he said, you know, we'll be in contact soon, Melissa.
The Harris and Myran families still holding out hope that their loved ones would turn up, but faced with a haunting feeling that police knew something more.
Welcome back. The family of Rebecca Contois is devastated after receiving the news she was murdered. But they aren't the only ones suffering. The families of Morgan Harris and Marcedes Myran have spent months tirelessly searching for their missing loved ones. With a man named Jeremy Skibicki charged in Contois' case, police believe he has more to say than he is letting on. Here's Marty Blunt and bringing them home.
The questions that we have is, what were you doing in the lane?
For hours, detectives pressed Skibicki about Rebecca Contois and why his foot impressions were in the back lane where her remains were found, why video surveillance appeared to show him in the area around that time, and why detectives found blood on the shoes he wore to the interview.
There's no doubt about it that that's you in your shoes. We have no doubt. He has no doubt. I have no doubt that's you in your shoes. We all know. We all know the truth. And you know that too.
But we're trying to figure out what were you doing in the lane. So Jeremy, what were you doing in the lane?
The wheels aren't turning anymore for you, Jeremy.
Yes.
There's a reason why.
Yes. Yeah. We're looking for the truth.
We're just looking for the truth, man. What's going on? What are you doing in the lane?
He appears calm and repeatedly asks the detectives if he can speak to an Orthodox priest.
I have a lot more information. I just want to get a priest to confess my sins.
One thing that I would note about the statement that Jeremy Skibicki gives to the police is that it's hard to put in words how he presents until you watch it and you listen and you see his mannerisms. It's a very difficult statement to watch.
You could tell it seemed like he was very comfortable and quiet and calm in the interview. And then it was quite abrupt when he just told them.
Seemingly out of the blue, a startling confession.
The criminal justice system is a joke. The world that we're living in is sick. I was driven to do stuff like this.
But exactly what he confessed to officers wouldn't be made public for months.
We were hearing from, justice sources from the beginning that it was almost certainly more victims.
There are things that are leading investigators to look at that as a potential possibility for sure.
It was in May of 2022 that Jeremy Skibicki was arrested and charged with taking the life of Rebecca Contois. But months after officers had hinted there may be other victims, still there was silence until December 1st, 2022.
Getting the call from the police the night before and saying, is it possible for you to gather your family? We have an update on your cousin. And I remember when I got off the phone, I just cried. And I thought, man, this is becoming real now.
December 1st, 2022, the homicide unit had called my family and I. And we had rushed down to meet with the homicide detectives. Yeah, that's when the police and detectives had made that announcement that my mother's DNA was found in an apartment, and the only information that they could give me really at that time was that she had fallen victim to the same guy who had murdered Rebecca Contois previously.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with an expanding murder investigation in Winnipeg. A suspect already in custody and charged with one murder is now charged with 3 additional counts of first-degree murder. All of the victims are Indigenous women, and the details of the cases are deeply disturbing.
On Thursday, police announced new first-degree murder charges against the 35-year-old in connection with the deaths of 3 more women: Morgan Beatrice Harris, Marcedes Myran, and a third woman who police have yet to identify.
That was the worst day ever. They came and told us that Marcedes was murdered. I kind of went blank. Even after they told me anyways, I still kept looking for her. I wanted her to be alive. I didn't want her gone. I was looking for her.
Pamela is trying to process. Her daughter is never coming home.
Kind of lost and hurt. I'm never going to see her again. I had a lot of things in my head. Like how she died. It's the last word she said. I wanted to know everything.
The family's worst nightmares had become reality as they were given word that their loved ones had been murdered. The new charges triggered by a confession volunteered by the killer months prior.
What comes out in that statement and what becomes really integral in the Crown's case is that this is an individual who is racist, who is misogynist, and who committed crimes that are sort of unspeakable in our society.
The world that we're living in is sick. I was driven to do stuff like this because I was so spent emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
I killed 4 people.
Okay. Thank you for your honesty. Do you know their names?
Yeah. Morgan Harris. The other one, she just showed up in the missing persons.
He confessed to murdering 3 other Indigenous women during that statement.
Obviously, you're going to face criminal charges on these things if we can substantiate that these women have been murdered. Is that fair?
Yeah.
You understand that?
Well, no, because I did this because I believe that there should be capital punishment.
Okay.
And that this is racially motivated. I don't believe that races are meant to be forced to live together.
Jeremy Skibicki, in his statement, presented as a white supremacist who was interested in eradicating Indigenous people, and particularly Indigenous women, and he provided very vulgar, discriminatory, hateful language. In his statement to police, he describes what he did to each of these women, and all 4 women died in very similar situations. They were strangled, they were drowned, their bodies were then defiled in a sexual manner by Jeremy Skibicki. 2 of them were then disposed of whole, and 2 of them were dismembered before they were disposed of.
Winnipeg police started working to verify what Jeremy Skibicki had told them. Investigators combed through Skibicki's apartment, taking DNA samples from numerous items and watching hours upon hours of security footage from locations Skibicki frequented that could possibly connect him to and help identify his victims.
The investigation that then happens between May and December of 2022, when the charges are ultimately laid, is to really understand and establish what evidence we have to prove who these individuals are.
Police say none of the latest victims' bodies have been found, but there was enough evidence to lay charges against Skibicki, and that DNA played a major role in the case.
But they didn't have her body. But they found her DNA.
I remember being angry but also shocked, and I said, well, where's my mom's body? That doesn't make sense. You're telling me she's murdered, but where? And that's when they said they don't have a body. I lost it. Absolutely lost it. I was screaming at the homicide detectives. I said, this is an ongoing issue, missing and murdered Indigenous women.
With the news of the additional murder charges, 2 more families were joining the Contois family in grieving, remembering Marcedes Myran, a young mother, sister, daughter, and granddaughter, known to be kind and a practical joker.
She always had a smile. Even if she was sad or mad, she would be smiling.
Caring, helpful, playful, Pamela Myran is remembering her daughter, Marcedes.
She was happy. She was excited, make jokes. Whenever she'd get in trouble, she'd either ground herself or say, hey Mom, I'm gonna do dishes for a week. Because I've been bad girl, so, okay. I didn't have to ground her, she'd ground herself. I thought that was cute.
I know, I always remember her playing jokes. Like when I go visit them at her mom's, she loved to hide my purse or my shoes so I couldn't leave. So when it's time for me to go, they were gone, missing. And you'd just be laughing, and she wouldn't tell us. We'd have to look for them, search all over. It was just a a joke with her. It was something she had to do, make Grandma stay longer. I'll never forget her smile. Now her girl is the same way. She has the same smile.
Remembering Marcedes' smile while trying to support her 2 young children.
And that month was a blur. Of course, it was December, it was Christmas time. We wanted to be good for them because they just lost their mom, so we wanted to make sure they had a good Christmas. First hearing about it just changed us forever. It changed all of us, I know that. The whole family. We're not like we used to be, and that pain will never go away.
And remembering Morgan Harris, also a mother known for her fierce personality.
But I want people to remember her as someone who had a really feisty attitude and a feisty heart. And that's something that my family always remembers about my mother Morgan, is despite her being 5 foot, 100 pounds soaking wet, she was strong and she didn't take anything from nobody.
I remember her growing up. I remember her being feisty, exactly like one of our other cousins said. You know, she had the heart and soul of a UFC fighter.
And while I want people to remember my mom's bright and loving soul, I want them to also remember the struggles that she had gone through her life and how she ended up where she was. So she was pushed throughout the child welfare system, which was really tough on her. My mom struggled with not only addictions, but mental health. And that was all a result of the child welfare system.
Through months of police investigation, officers were able to determine he had killed Morgan Harris on or around May 1st, 2022. And about 3 days later, he killed Marcedes Myran.
In relation to Morgan Harris, there's video surveillance of her at 190 Disraeli having interactions with Jeremy Skibicki in May of 2022, right around the time that he described in his statement. There is video surveillance of her wearing clothes that become important because the police find clothes that match what they can see in the video surveillance in the areas that were searched in his house and around his house. The night that she is killed by Jeremy Skibicki, there's video surveillance of her being escorted out of 190 Disraeli Avenue. And so again, very important video surveillance because it again shows what she's wearing and confirms a lot of the details that he provided. The police were able to obtain DNA from members of Morgan Harris's family, which was then used to compare to DNA samples that were found on some of those items that they seized from his suite and from the garbage receptacles, and were able to compare it. In terms of Marcedes Myran, very similar investigation occurs. Her name, of course, was not mentioned by Mr. Skibicki when he provided his statement, and so the police are really trying to determine who is this individual, what video surveillance might they have that helps to identify her, and what other evidence can confirm that. And so they do similar types of looking, and video surveillance with respect to Marcedes Myran is found of her and Jeremy Skibicki outside 190 Disraeli. They're then seen walking through a parking lot closer to Jeremy Skibicki's house. Miss Myran's DNA was located on a number of exhibits that were found in Jeremy Skibicki's home. He described using a knife. He described what it looked like. There was a Facebook posting with him holding a knife, and the police were able to seize a black combat style knife, and Miss Myran's DNA was found on that knife. One of the details that Jeremy Skibicki provided in his statement was that he had disposed of Buffalo Woman and Morgan Harris whole, but that he had cut the other 2 women, Marcedes Myran and Rebecca Contois, into pieces before he disposed of them.
With no idea who the 4th victim was, Indigenous elders gifted the woman the name of Mashkude Bishkikwe, or Buffalo Woman. Skibicki claimed Buffalo Woman was his first victim, who he had killed in mid-March of 2022, her identity eluding police.
At the time that Mr. Skibicki provided his statement to police, he did not know the name of that individual. We knew that she had been wearing a baby fat jacket, which became a critical piece of evidence.
Police seized that baby fat jacket, which the killer had sold on Facebook Marketplace. DNA was found on it, but investigators were unable to match it to anyone, meaning there was one family out there still searching for answers and not knowing what happened to their loved one.
We'll take any information in regards to it. Ultimately, in a perfect world, we have someone come and tell us that they knew exactly who was wearing a jacket like this.
On Thursday night, a crowd of mourners honored the life of 39-year-old Morgan Harris by a sea of candles burning to the sound of traditional Indigenous songs.
I think it's sad that time and time again that we have to keep coming here to gather for sad circumstances.
So that same night we went to the serial killer's house where they made the announcement. You know, they had given the address of where it had happened. And we went down there and we held a vigil that same night. There was probably 200 people there, gathered there, drumming, singing. Some gathering just because they heard of a serial killing and some gathering to genuinely support. And I remember just crying out to the news, and I said, the police told me they don't have my mom's body. And that's wrong. I said, we need to search.
Welcome back. Even though Winnipeg police have laid charges against a suspect, the bodies of the women he is believed to have killed have still not been recovered. Police have also been unable to identify the first victim. And despite the outrage of the victims' families, there are currently no plans to search for the remains. So, if the remains are never found, is justice at risk? Here once again is Marnie Blunt and bringing them home.
Prairie Green, a privately owned landfill just a few minutes north of Winnipeg, on the opposite side of the city from the city-run Brady Road landfill, where Rebecca Contois' partial remains were found.
Winnipeg Police Chief Danny Smythe confirming Tuesday they believe the remains of two of the victims, Marcedes Myran and Morgan Harris, are actually at Prairie Green landfill in the Stony Mountain area and not Brady landfill.
The location of the remains of Buffalo woman still unknown.
Winnipeg police are defending their decision not to search a landfill for the remains of 3 murdered Indigenous women. Investigators suspect their bodies may be there, but say searching it is not feasible for a number of reasons. The families of the victims don't accept that.
Across a 4-acre site that was 40 feet in depth, heavily compacted with 9,000 tons of wet, heavy construction clay, and distributed throughout the site was 250 tons of asbestos. In addition to that, we had 1,500 tons of animal remains strewn throughout the site, which would make it very difficult to discern human remains.
As police push back against doing a search, the families head to Ottawa.
We were flying to go speak at Parliament Hill, and the Winnipeg police stopped us. They came on the other side of security to stop us, to explain to us before we got on the plane to go to Ottawa as to why the search couldn't be done for Morgan. And I was like, you guys are wasting your time here. Like, you're gonna show us all the reasons why you can't search. Why not share with us the reasons why you should search?
So imagine you just found out your mom got murdered. Within days, the Winnipeg Police Service are now coming to you regarding more information that you begged for, presenting a PowerPoint presentation of the Prairie Green landfill versus the Brady landfill of gruesome, I guess, just scenes of the landfill, right? Because you're imagining that that's where your mother is. Your mother's on their piles of trash.
We got pretty upset, and we got on our plane and we said, you know what? We'll see you when we get back. It was a fight from that day on.
I should not have to stand here today, and I should not have to come here and be so mad and beg so that you will find and bring our loved ones home. My mother didn't pass away with a home, so let's pay her the respect that she deserves by finally giving her one that's not a resting place at the Prairie Green landfill, and for these other women as well. I think it's disgusting. The police are trying to cover themselves because they know that they fail our women time and time again, and it needs to stop. How can you even fathom the idea to leave them there? These women are deserving of a proper resting place, not to be left alone in a landfill in the dead of winter. If you want to respect and honor them, stop making excuses as to why you can't find them. You can. You are just refusing to.
My mentor, or I should say friend, leader, told me, well, you have to lead the narrative. You have to take your power back, because right now the Winnipeg police are leading that narrative. So you need to take your power back, and you need to just move forward with this.
On this Thursday night, Winnipeg's police chief pressured to step down. The backlash to the decision not to search a landfill for murdered Indigenous women.
The message you are sending to the greater community, to the non-Indigenous community, is that Indigenous women don't matter. That if somebody wants to target and hurt our women, that they can dump them in the landfill and no one will look for them.
Nobody should have to go through this pain and through the re-traumatizing process to uncover the truth and get to justice. Nobody should have to search for their mother in the trash, and no human should be treated like trash.
But the million-dollar question is, would police at least try to find these women if they weren't Indigenous? And then, do they have a responsibility, if they believe they're in the landfill, to recover them and to return them to their families?
The Winnipeg Police Service declined to be interviewed for this episode. But at the time, despite criticism, the then chief of police stood by the decision.
You did face some criticism for that. Just want to explain your reasoning, and is that today something you stand by?
So I've always distinguished the criminal investigation from what's being talked about now, which is a recovery mission. The decision not to go, I think, was the right one to make at the time.
If it was your daughter or your granddaughter or your son, whatever, if it was your child, your sister, your aunt, your mom, you would want them to go look. If you were white, you would go look. Sorry, but it comes down to racism. We were Aboriginal people, First Nations. They don't give a crap. They never did. That made me very angry. Very angry. That's my girl that's out there. Just because she's First Nation, you go dig for her. You don't leave them out there.
Their alleged murderer had been arrested and charged, but 3 of 4 victims had not been found, meaning prosecutors would have the hurdle of proving first-degree murder without bodies of 3 victims and without the identity of one.
That makes this case sort of different than many homicide cases that are put before court, because there's often a body that is found and then an autopsy that's done and a pathologist who's able to testify about this. The lack of evidence in terms of their bodies was something that sort of the gaps had to be filled in the other evidence.
Coming up in part 2 of Bringing Them Home, what else would turn up in a search? And what else would be revealed about this serial killer's heinous crimes?
There's a lot of evidence that came from surveillance, security, video, following his victims, going to shelters, disposing of their remains in garbage bins. He told police he got the idea from Sean Lamb.
Say their name! Say their name! Search the landfill!
To me, this is about sending a message to everyone in Manitoba that you matter. When somebody goes missing, we go looking.
I always knew. I always believed we would bring her home.
It just made it real. She's gone. She won't ever come in that door again.
For 3 years, she's been a faceless silhouette alongside Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, and Marcedes Myran. Today, we know her name.
The focus right now is Ashley Shingoose, because we have the information that we believe where she's located. But we are making plans to search for Tanya Nipanak as well.
Say her name! Tanya Nipanak!
That's coming up in part 2 of Bringing Them Home. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Beat. I'm Anthony Robart. Want more episodes of Crime Beat? Listen to the Crime Beat podcast now for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. And for past episodes of Crime Beat, go to the Global TV app, visit globaltv.com, or check out our Crime Beat YouTube page.